our website, www.wadr.org.
Today is Guinea's presidential election, the first since the 2021 coup. Join us for the live coverage, debates and reports, minute by minute as the election transpires. 9 candidates, 1 seat. The race to the Guinean presidency is on. Incumbent transitional head, General Mamadi Doumbouya campaigns to transition to a civilian president, and 7 others are in the race for Guinea's top job. Today, over 6.7 million registered voters will deliver their verdicts on who becomes Guinea's next leader. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online WADR.org, YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage. Guinea decides, WADR covers. This is the live coverage of the 2025 presidential election in Guinea.
It's midday in Dakar and Conakry, Wampin, Abuja, and Port Novo. Welcome to the second edition of WADR's live broadcast of the elections in Guinea, where some 6.7 million eligible voters are participating, according to the Electoral Commission, in today's ballot to decide the fate of 9 candidates and who becomes the president for the next 7 years. Now, according to report, polls opened at exactly 8 o'clock across major polling stations for this historic vote. The presidential election in Guinea began this Sunday, marking the first presidential election actually held in the country since the September 2021 coup that ousted President Alpha Condé. General Mamadi Doumbouya, the head of the Guinean transition, an independent candidate, is in the race and, according to sources, is supposedly, or should I say, has the overwhelming majority in this election. With me in the studio this afternoon is my colleague Samkule Janko. Samkule, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Abdullah Hassan. It's good to be back for the second edition of Guinea Decides here on West Africa Democracy Radio. We are pleased to be here to give you the latest updates happening in Conakry and around the country.
And talking about updates so far, we understand that voting is taking place across the country peacefully. There's been no incident at all reported or recorded regarding any clash or clashes between supporters of the different candidates or between electorate and security forces. But quickly, let's listen to Aissatou Jallow.
Polling stations in Conakry opened this morning as part of Guinea's nationwide presidential election, the first held since the 2021 military coup. Voters are casting their ballots to elect a president for a 7-year term. Observers say the voting process began peacefully with orderly queues forming at polling centers across the capital. Nationwide, an estimated 6.7 million registered voters are eligible to vote at more than 23,000 polling stations, many of them located in Conakry. The capital, like other parts of the country, is under heavy security, with police and gendarmes deployed to polling sites and along major routes to maintain calm and prevent disturbances. Domestic civil society organizations have deployed thousands of observers in Conakry and across the country to monitor the process and promote peaceful participation. In addition, regional organizations, including ECOWAS and the African Union, have observer missions in Conakry to oversee the conduct of the vote and the initial counting of ballots. The election is widely anticipated to result in a victory for junta leader General Mamadi Doumbouya, who seized power in 2021 and is running under the new constitution, which permits military leaders to contest a presidency. Polling stations are scheduled to close at 1800 local time, and provisional results are expected to be announced within 48 to 72 hours following the close of polls.
I said to Jaludin Conakry with a brief update about the voting process since it began this morning. Well, we'll be joining her shortly for more, but before then, let's remind you that 9 candidates are vying for the presidency, and each of them have presented a distinct vision of rebuilding sustainable democracy in the West African nation. First are the profiles of Makali Kamara, a seasoned diplomat, and Ibrahima Abesila, a mathematician and a former Minister of Energy. Sankuli.
Indeed, Abdullah. And also in the race are Alhaji Buna Keita, leader of the RGP party, and Mohammed Sharif Tunkara, a former parliamentarian.
More on profiles of candidates vying for the top job are Dr. Faya Milumono, leader of the Liberal Bloc Party, and one of the executives of the Front for the Defense of the National Constitution, FNDC, and of course Abdoulaye Yero Balde, business strategist.
Of course, from Abdoulaye Yero Balde, we also have another Abdoulaye, but this time Abdoulaye Koroma, a former member of the National Assembly, who served from April 2020 until the 2021 coup, and Mohamed Nabe, a business strategy expert, seeking to secure a majority win in today's election.
And to end our series of profiles of the candidates in the Guinean presidential election, we conclude with Mamadou Doumbouya, born on December 5, 1984 in Banankoroda in the city of Kankan. He holds a master's degree and a decorated military officer, having obtained certificates from certified military institutions around the world. Doumbouya, who is the current transitional president, is seeking to legitimize his stay in office through today's ballot. So there you have it. The profiles of 9 candidates in today's crucial election in Guinea. Nearly 4 years since the military coup in 2021. Do you have some rundown for Sankule about Guinea's political history and journey, or we go to Aissatou first and come back to you?
Aissatou has been on the line for a little while. Let's just join her, and then after her, we'll give them a little rundown of Guinea's political history, the coups, and the elections as well. But in the meantime, I think we should just join Aissatou for more updates.
Very well. Aissatou, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Glad to be there.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your, minute-to-minute update about the voting process there in Guinea. But tell us, what is new? What has changed from the last time we spoke?
Daily life continues through certain areas. Although certain areas, experience temporary disruptions due to the elections, with some roads closed or traffic redirected near polling centers for voter safety. And local vendors and small businesses adjust their hours to serve voters, offering food, drinks, and election-related items around polling stations as well. Engagement increases, as members and families discuss candidates, campaigns, and election stations. And children often observe learning about the voting process.
Hello, Aissatou, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm getting you.
Okay, then you were saying something.
Yeah, we are talking about we are talking about daily life continues in Guinea here.
Well, so there's
something. Getting me?
Yes, I heard you. I think you've really delivered that point. Now, there's something that really happens on election day where you hear of voters, eligible voters, not being able to identify or register their names on the electoral register roll. Is that something that is common today in Guinea? And if at all that is, how are the electoral officials helping to reconcile or handle the problem?
Since the people voted recently during the referendum, I think those problems were resolved. And this time around, I've not seen any cases of that yet.
And tell us more. Do you still have women and young people coming out in mass to vote? Because the last time we spoke, you said yes, that turnout was commendable. Is it still out there?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. I visited the polling station just behind me here, and then it's the same as well. Young people can be seen coming to vote, and especially women too.
Have you heard any word from the candidates in today's election, if they've already gone to the polling stations and what are their messages to Guineans?
Actually, I did not get any news of any candidate going to any polling station yet. But if I do, I'll let you know in subsequent editions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said to, I mean, you in your report, I heard you mention about over like 11,000 security personnel, being deployed in all parts of the country. What can you tell us about the security situation at the moment in the polling stations that you've visited?
Security is tight, as I mentioned earlier on this morning. Significant number of security personnel, have been deployed nationwide to protect the polling stations, the electoral materials, voters, and police officers, actively stationed in and around the voting centers as well, as long as major roads to maintain order and prevent disturbances.
Well, I think that'll be it for now, Aissatou. I'm sure we'll come back to you before the end of this edition of the special broadcast. But one last question, though. Apparently, today shows very well the intense nature or gravity of the issues of right violations, if you could speak to that, because it appears as if a lot of people are scared to speak to the media or actually say firsthand what is happening in Guinea. Why so?
Actually, as you said, yes, it is really difficult for us as journalists in Guinea right now to get people speaking, because most of them are afraid, talking and then saying, giving statements about this election. So people are just being careful right now. People are staying indoors, after voting, they just come back home and stay indoors and then wait for the results.
So this also will mean that there are talks behind closed doors of whether or not today's vote will really be transparent, credible, and for sure inclusive.
Of course, yes.
Okay, you have any question for her before we let go?
I mean, we'll get back to her, like you said, later before the end of the show. But thank you very much, Aissatou. You've been really helpful. We'll get back to you when we can, pretty soon before the end of the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. We are live online at WADR.org and streaming on all social media platforms, Facebook and YouTube at WADR. I am Abdullah Hassan, and with me is my colleague, Sankule Janko.
Yes, I am Sankule Janko with the boss himself here, giving you all the updates on Guinea's election today. You've just heard from Aissatou there, giving us the latest updates. Hopefully, we'll bring you some of the reactions from some of the candidates, including the president later on. But in the meantime, we have
Faya Milimono.
Faya Milimono, one of the candidates, one of the 9 candidates vying for the presidential seat in Guinea.
And he has a message to Guineans.
I'm not seeing much enthusiasm yet. I hope that will change as the day progresses. I voted, and you know who I voted for. What I mean is that since 7 a.m. this morning, after the polling stations opened, we've already received some information from within the country showing that in some places, things got off to a bad start. Just yesterday, activists from Ampati were being threatened. Those who had received mission orders to be delegates to the polling stations. In some prefectures, the local branches of the General Directorate of Elections, DGE, demanded that all mission orders be countersigned by the Prefectural Director of Elections. Just imagine, we were less than 24 hours away. There are nearly 400 polling stations, more than 400 in Gegedu, and each candidate will therefore have 1 delegate per polling station. Multiply 400 by 9, and you will get an idea of how many mission hours will have been targeted. It turns out that all of this has nothing to do with the law, with the electoral code. I had to call the Director General of Elections, and then on the phone with me she called the Prefectural Director, who told her she never received instructions from the Secretary General of the Gegedu Prefecture. And it turns out that this Secretary General of the Gegedu Prefecture, a very influential figure, Dunia Kujano, even prevented training sessions at one point. Training sessions that had absolutely nothing to do with politics, but simply because there was a vice president of the Liberal bloc present. He sent the police and the gendarmerie to disperse the people. even though enormous sums had already been spent. These are just two examples of this kind of influence that we are beginning to see again across the country. Here in Conakry, at Bisia Port 2, the Liberal bloc delegate was expelled. This has been brought to our attention. The reason given was that the mission order had not been approved by the municipal director of elections. A similar problem arose in Gegedou, which was resolved thanks to the intervention of the Director General of Elections. Therefore, we will be holding press conferences every 2 hours throughout the day, and all irregularities will be documented because we will not tolerate any wrongdoing during these elections. We remain optimistic because we will not accept that things are stolen right under our noses. If this country must go into crisis, so be it. But we will not accept someone without legitimacy presiding over Guinea. To the entire Guinean people, I urge everyone to go and vote to vote in large numbers, especially to the delegates, the leaders, the supervisors of the Liberal bloc. Never give in to provocation. You have specific instructions. What we have to do is document all irregularities, all violations of the law, and on that, you can count on us. The Liberal bloc is not in the habit of saying just anything, and this time, we will not make any exceptions. Thank you.
Le bloc libéral n'a pas l'habitude de dire de n'importe quoi, et cette fois, nous ne ferons pas dérogation. Merci beaucoup.
Faya Milemono is the leader of the Liberal Bloc Party and one of the executives of the Front for the Defense of the National Constitution, FNDC. He's also vying for presidency, I should say. He's one of the 9 candidates validated by the Directorate of General Elections of Guinea to contest the top job in today's elections.
All right, from Fire Milimono there, one of the candidates. We head to one of our experts currently who is online, and he's Austin Abe. Austin Abe is the liaison officer for WADR. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How's it going?
We are going very well. Thank you for joining our broadcast. I'm here in the studio with my colleague Abdullah Hassan.
Good afternoon, Austin.
Good afternoon, Abdullah. How's it going? How's everything?
Very well, very well. Good to have you join us live, Mr. Austin.
Sir, let me begin asking you,
Yes.
How important or crucial is Guinea's election to the West African region, of course, following recent developments we've seen in Bissau and Benin, for example? How important would you say this election is to the region?
Very crucial election. Very, very, very crucial election, because it is an election that will end the military regime country who has been suspended after the military coup in that country. You recognize that when a military coup happens in a country, ECOWAS authority of state will suspend the country from participating in their meetings, and automatically that country may be provided with support, but not fully a member of the ECOWAS authority of heads of state, even though the country continues to play a role at other sub-activity level, but it is not a member of the authority of state. It means that Guinea cannot participate in the decision-making processes of the region. But this election today will immediately lift the ban on that suspension of Guinea Conakry. So once an elected officer is emerged, a president emerged, the ban will be over. And as I speak, ECOWAS is already in the country. The long-term election observers arrived about a week or so ago. And the mission leader has also arrived at having meetings in Guinea in the past a week or thereabout. So what is important is that it will be an end to a military regime or a junta-led administration in that country. It is a very crucial election for ECOWAS.
Now, Mr. Austin, it's good to know that today's election is going to bring an end to the military transition, but it's another debate on its own, and I wish and hope for you to contribute to that. The fact that it's not necessarily transparent and inclusive as it should be under given democratic principles.
You are very right. Was the Nigeria election 2023 very transparent? It was a civilian-to-civilian administration.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Sierra Leone election of 2023 very transparent? But you're not aware of the Sierra Leone election where the APC actually wanted to boycott the governance of that country until ECOWAS peace mediation. Right now, there's a difference between return to democratic process and looking at transparency and integrity of election. If we are to deal with transparency and integrity of election, it will be a different conversation. But in this case, we want an end to military junta. For the now, the question you ask about cruciality of the election, the crucial process for me is that the country will end military regime. At least they will return to what we call a civil rule. I don't want to call it democratic rule. In most parts of Africa and West Africa, there is truly no democratic rule. What we have is civilian rule, arguably. So the argument you talked about whether the transparency of elections, I have good and bad. In Guinea-Bissau, Cote d'Ivoire, the major opposition candidates were suspended.
So as we have it today in Guinea.
Exactly. I'm actually going a route to Guinea. The major opposition were suspended. That country had no military regime. It's a civilian authority. The likes of Babo suspended, even though they argued that the suspension were justified. One, you have an alternate citizenship. You cannot contest for the presidency. Those were justifications. If you move up to Guinea-Bissau, the major opposition candidate was suspended. But the difference between Cote d'Ivoire and Guinea-Bissau was that in Cote d'Ivoire, the opposition refused to organize themselves and support the opposition candidate who is on the ballot. That is what we saw in Guinea-Bissau. That even Umbalo, having suspended the major political party, the major political opponent, they organized and they supported the one who went through the ballot, and eventually Umbalo, seeing that election was running against him, had to do a self-coup. Now, coming to Guinea-Conakry, the truth of the matter is that the best way authoritarian regime act is to identify a major opponent who could run them down and suspend them. It's almost like a routine in Francophone countries. Underline the word, in Francophone countries. Even in Nigeria, I mentioned earlier, there was no suspension of opposition candidate. In Sierra Leone, there was no suspension of opposition candidate. It was only in Senegal. We had issue with Sonko, there was some trump-up allegation of rape and etc. and was banned from contesting. But his party won when Faye became the flag bearer, using Sonko as the basis. Again, Francophone country.
Now,
the
Mr. Austin,
matter, if you check across West Africa, yes.
Well, still on Guinea-Bissau, Guinea. My question would be, what are the stakes? Because we know that in 2009, a similar incident did occur, because then Captain Musa Dadis Kamara, who was the junta leader, had wanted to transition to civilian rule, and we saw what happened. What are the stakes in this election as we look at it today?
I think that Guinea may just have to be on a precipice in a way that we need to study Guinea for a while. The truth of the matter is that a constitutional referendum was done, which many did not actually agree to, but the vote shows otherwise. The vote agreed to a 7-year term, which moving from 5 to 7. The vote, the same Colonel Mamadi Demboya, who was not supposed to be on the ballot, again the vote turned that and said he can contest the election. Now, everything is working for the military junta to contest election. Suspended major opposition party, a major opposition candidate, suspend the clause that says he cannot contest as the junta government, increase the tenure from 5 to 7. It needs the next 7 years to consolidate. And it's going to be, it may end up winning a re-election in the next 7 years. That'll be 14 years. That'll be 14 years. But for us, if Anglophone, country. I use the word very loosely. Again, don't. I hate dividing West Africa to be Anglophone and Francophone. But the only way to explain it is that if you look at majority of Anglophone, it's a 4-year term. Majority of Anglophone, Francophone is 5-7. If it was not Macky Sall who reduced Senegal from 7 to 5, it would have been 7. So again, what has happened in Guinea today is that the military junta would have reviewed the issues of the past, recognizing what could help him. Don't also forget that it was a crave to continue in power that led to the coup in Guinea, an attempt for a third-term bid, and all of the things that happened. In fact, that's also what happened in Burkina Faso. Comparing and Alpha Conde are on the seat for this matter. When elected officials begin to shift their ground, they create unnecessary tension. I think that what the president, if he eventually wins, because he's actually winning, he has cleared his way. Conde will become president of Guinea. It is clear. There's unless anything happens. But I don't also like the interview granted a few minutes ago that you played, when you say even if the country run into crisis, it doesn't matter. No, you don't say that as a coalition. We must work towards the good of Guinea. If after this election, the next 7 years, an opposition can come up and wrestle power in a democratic form, I think that what Guinea needs is democracy. Democracy that allows for freedom of choices, freedom to go to election, even though the election has become a ritual, but it's also an opportunity to sack an elected government. In Nigeria, it was through the election on a ballot that the 2015 election sacked an incumbent president. It was in a ballot that the party in power, the NPP in Ghana, lost an election in December. It was from the ballot. The ballot can continue to be the weapon the citizens can use to keep and remove any official. And I think Guinea cannot be an exception. And I think the people of Guinea should work towards a democracy, work towards a freedom. Again, freedom. Freedom is very important. Freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of peaceful assembly. These are critical elements. Today in Guinea, those things are forbidden. You go against the military authority, you can be jailed.
Wow.
Like we see in Burkina Faso. Let's work towards freedom and gradually build our democracy.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Austin Nagbe, liaison officer for WADEMOS. We'll be coming back to you in subsequent editions for more contributions, Austin. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. And have a wonderful season, complementary season.
Merci beaucoup. Wow, there you go, Austin Nagbe, liaison officer of WADEMOS, and he is restating soundly that Guinea needs a democracy where it allows for input or recognition of views of ordinary citizens.
Rightly so. I mean, and he's also just trying to emphasize the importance of staging elections, even though they could be staged under difficult circumstances, where we've seen in most West African countries, I mean, major opposition parties are barred from participating. But he's emphasizing that even though that may be the case, let us always go for elections, because elections are powerful. It also gives citizens the opportunity to make their say, like he gave example in Nigeria, in Ghana, and even in the Gambia in 2016, for example. So elections are still very, very, very important political processes. That's was the key message, emphasis from Austin there.
And one last thing he said, though, his words, that Guinea needs to be studied for a while, because it appears as a pattern.
And he has a point.
And which we are going to be looking at shortly, right?
Absolutely.
So, post-independence and early coups in Guinea. Now, after independence from France in 1958, Guinea was ruled by Ahmed Sékou Touré under an authoritarian single-party system. Dissent was harshly repressed and political freedoms were limited for decades. In 1984, shortly after Touré's death, the military under Colonel Lansana Conté seized power in a bloodless coup ending Touré's rule and beginning a long period of military-backed governance. Now, turn to multi-party politics. In the early 1990s, under Conte, Guinea introduced multi-party elections. However, these early electoral processes were widely seen as flawed and dominated by the incumbent. Conte modified the constitution to extend his rule and oversaw elections that the opposition contested as neither free nor fair. In 2008, coup and return to civilian rule. After Conte's death in 2008, another military coup brought Captain Moussa Dadis Camara to power, interrupting constitutional succession. This period saw heightened instability until a transitional process paved the way for civilian elections in 2010. Sankule.
And of course, talking about that, this is where many analysts describe this as the first democratic elections, and that is 2010, because the 2020 election marked Guinea's first relatively free and fair presidential poll, resulting in the election of Alpha Condé, a long-time opposition leader and a hopeful moment for democratic governance at the time in Guinea. Well, Condé was re-elected in 2015, but his 2020 attempt to secure a controversial third term, enabled by a constitutional referendum, sparked large protests and allegations of electoral misconduct. These tensions were weakening democratic norms and fueled political unrest in the country. And then later on, you have coup and transitional politics, because in September 2021, Colonel Mamadou Doumbouya, commander of the elite special forces, overthrew Condé in a military coup, citing corruption, mismanagement, and constitutional abuses. Well, this coup derailed what had been a fragile democratic trajectory. And then the junta suspended the 2020 constitution and ruled on the transitional charter, promising to restore civilian rule by the end of 2024, though the timeline slipped amid domestic and international pressure. However, that leads us to where we are today, because constitutional referendum in 2025 to facilitate a formal return to election, the transitional authorities held a constitutional referendum on September 21, 2025. The new constitution was approved by a large majority, extending presidential terms from 5 to 7 years and establishing a new Senate. While authorities touted this as a step forward democratic renewal, opponents criticized as a power grab to enable the junta leader to run for office. And then here we are, December 28, 2025, presidential election is the first since 2021 coup Abdullahi, and critical moment in Guinea's political evolution. Doumbouya, who originally pledged not to run, entered the race following the constitutional changes, positioning him as the front runner. Well,
I think that also is just what Austin said. That's one major setback of the new constitution, or the constitutional amendment they had, because two major issues. First of all, Doumbouya had to overrun his stay in office, because I think the initial arrangement or charter declared an 18-month transition period.
Yes.
They went beyond that. And also it says that none of them, the junta leader, will contest.
But then,
and it was a good yes vote. ECOWAS was in and out the country to discuss the transition period, and then last minute there was a referendum which did not only extend the president's stay in office, but also allowed for Doumbouya
to contest.
So, and this is why for many it's not just entirely free and credible.
And about that, Abdullahi, mind you, also major opposition leaders have been barred, exiled, or sidelined, and political parties have faced suspension and dissolution in the run-up to the vote, raising concerns about political space and electoral fairness. Well, for most analysts and international observers, they describe the 2025 elections as pivotal. Just like Austin said, it could either consolidate Guinea's return to constitutional rule or entrench military aligned governance under the guise of elections. Well, many voters see the poll as predetermined due to Doumbouya's influence, while others hope it brings political stability and economic progress.
Well, talk about dominance. This is the trend we've seen in the last 2 years. Let's look at Chad. What happened? The late Idriss Déby Itno. It wasn't more like a coup, but then he died at the front, in the battlefront. The son took over. Shortly after, there was an election, which was like a smooth transition. from military rule to civilian rule. But look at Chad. Let's be honest. Look at Chad and go back to some of the reports. Not really has changed. It appears as if Chad is still under military rule. You know, and so this is the trend, Gabon. So oftentimes they come in, I mean, there's no way it works that you are in office and you're contesting for that same office.
It's difficult.
It's difficult.
Very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm. And so the dominance issue is very apparent in the case of Guinea.
And looking at some of the political parties or the opposition that have been bad, you would say he has more influence than...
They've been bad, suspended, others closed.
Exiled.
Half of the top figures are on exile.
Senegal,
of course, he was formerly in Senegal, but
was the main opposition leader under Conde's rule.
UFDG party.
Yes, UFDG party leader.
So the indicators are there. But again,
just as stated by the experts.
By the experts, good that you added that. But
Yeah.
again, it's important for us to just know that the call is for democracy to be sustained by all means possible. Now, for decades, the place of women and youth in politics and governance was a concern amid claimed progress and persistent challenges. In this report, we focus on the promotion of women, child protection, and inclusion of vulnerable groups, areas that authorities in Guinea present as priorities of public action under the transition led by General Mamadou Doumbouya. Policies targeting youth, employment, and vocational training are also among the key issues dominating the national agenda. Since September 2021, Guinean authorities have highlighted a stated political commitment to gender equality, women's economic empowerment, and the strengthening of social protection in a context marked by high expectations and deep-rooted structural challenges. Here's a report by Abraham Parker.
Since taking office, the General Mamadou Doumbouya has emphasized his commitment to enhancing women's representation in governance. The authorities claim they are implementing an employable policy focused on equity and skills development. This approach is reflected in the increased presence of women in leadership positions within the ruling administration. Some observers view this as a positive political signal in favor of gender equality. Elhaj Mohamed Diallo, Executive Director of the Guinean Organization for Combating Irregular Migration, believes this shift represents a departure from previous practices.
In any case, in Guinea, there isn't this problem of saying that only work is prioritized for women or men. Everyone knows I'm hunting. Regarding equity, at least at the level of positions of responsibility, men and women are equal, because even when you look at the government level, you will see many women in very strategic positions, and the employability policy in Guinea is favorable to everyone. But the challenge, first of all, is how to allow these young people with local training to be employed in positions of responsibility without prioritizing the diaspora. That's our challenge. Secondly, there is the issue of salary, because the salary policy isn't really defined.
However, women's organizations remain cautious. The Guinean Young Women Leaders Club argues that the advancement of women should not be limited to appointments. It must also be supported by concrete public policies.
It is important that we are able to carry our own messages, our own voice, based on our own realities. Challenges evolve, realities evolve, and our way of working must evolve. What worked before may not apply now, and we, as young people, must ensure that we create an environment that allows us to safely convey our messages.
Regarding the protection of girls and women, the authorities have mentioned efforts to strengthen the legal framework. Yet, According to the Demographic and Health Survey, 95% of girls and women in Guinea have undergone female genital mutilation. Several society actors have criticized the limited implementation of existing laws.
This clearly demonstrates how deeply entrenched this practice is in our society. Therefore, voices must be raised to ensure it stops and that girls are permanently protected from it. The biggest challenges and obstacles in the fight against female genital mutilation remain the application of the justice system. Often, the problem lies in the application of justice because sentences are simply suspended rather than actual convictions. We must move beyond this and apply the law to the fullest extent.
In terms of employment and training, the outcomes are mixed. Although some programs exist, many young people in Guinea still struggle to access a stable employment. Migration specialist Elhaj Mohamed Diallo states that the issue of irregular migration is closely linked to the lack of local economic opportunities.
When we talk about the state of youth affairs, there is definitely a good government underway because most ministerial positions, you will find young people among them. The National Youth Policy has been approved and the National Youth Strategy is currently being implemented. Well, when you consider migration, the migration policy isn't structured in such a way that young people can truly use the normal channels that allow them to travel. And African migration policy is also a copycat of European policy. The fact is, I can certainly say that the government has failed. Many young people today think they need to take responsibility. They need to go to the other side. It's a failure on the part of the government. And the Chimamanda 2040 project, there is a policy being put in place to recover these young people and all those who work either to support them in setting up economic interest groups or at least to support young people so that they are truly self-employed.
As Guinean voters elect a democratic president, incumbent President Mamadi Doumbouya's record appears to be missed. While there is acknowledgement of political will, expectations remain high, particularly regarding the actual impact of public policies and the opportunities available to younger people.
There you have it, a special report put together by Abraham Parker looking at women and youth in politics in Guinea.
Today is Guinea's presidential election, the first since the 2021 coup. Join us for the live coverage, debates and reports, minute by minute as the election transpires. 9 candidates, 1 seat. The race to the Guinean presidency is on. Incumbent transitional head General Mamadi Doumbouya campaigns to transition to a civilian president, and 7 others are in the race for Guinea's top job. Today, over 6.7 million registered voters will deliver their verdicts on who becomes Guinea's next leader. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and online WADR.org, YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage. Guinea decides, WADR covers.
Well, you're still reminded that you're listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM at Dakar, Senegal. My name is Sankele Jankan. With me is my colleague Abdullahi Hassan, and this is the second edition of Guinea Decides, as Guineans head to the polls to elect a new president. Abdullahi, welcome to the second edition. We are still here. Of course, we've heard experts, we've heard from a reporter in Guinea. Interesting day in Guinea.
It is. And most importantly, I think, for West Africa, given the fact that reports and expert analysis suggest that democracy is under attack, so we need to have all ECOWAS member states still in line or in conforming to democracy or democratic principles. Mm-hmm. So it's important that Guinea gets it right. I keep going to Guinea-Bissau because we just recently covered elections there. Absolutely. But it's crucial that Guinea gets it right because if you look very clearly now, Mali neighbors Guinea, but they too are under military rule for, the last 5 years. Guinea-Bissau is gone under military rule. Just Guinea here. And Senegal is like the most stable amidst these countries. The Gambia is also working away from dictatorship. So it's important that we all Guinea gets it right, because any spillover there could affect other countries or regional stability.
Absolutely, regional stability. And interestingly, of course, Guineans are heading to polls in Guinea, but it is not only in Guinea that Guineans are exercising their constitutional right. Here in Senegal, for example, later on in the subsequent editions, you'll hear Guineans here in Senegal with regard to today's vote. But we'll have to head to the Gambia, where you have a large population of Guineans in the Gambia as well. And online is Michel Pogpey Quivogui. He is the president of ECOWAS Citizens in the Gambia, and he's a Guinean national as well, and he has a lot of experience in elections, because in the previous election in 2020 in Guinea, in the Gambia rather, he was the head of the Sena at the time. Good afternoon, Michel. It's good to have you. Welcome to WADR. Hello, Michel. Hello, good afternoon, Michel. Can you hear me? Well, we'll keep trying, Michel.
Okay,
looks like his call is on mute.
Yes, if you can hear us, please,
yes,
Michel,
looks like
unmute your mic.
Your call was on mute.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I touched the mic.
It's all right. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to WADR's special edition of Guinea's election. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Janko.
How is the Gambia this afternoon, sir?
Yeah, Gambia is fine, and right now the Guinea presidential election is going on.
Right,
right now I'm at the center. Yeah, the election center. So everything is going on smoothly.
How would you describe the atmosphere at the moment at the election center that you are, where Guineans are casting their votes there in the Gambia?
Yeah, there are two centers. The center I am right now is Serekunda. Is located at Serekunda, and there are 7 polling stations at that center. So, and the vote started at 7 o'clock sharp, which is given by the law, the Guinea electoral law. So it started on time.
I know we have a large Guinean population in the Gambia. How is the turnout like? How would you describe the turnout for this specific election, sir?
Yeah, the turnout is not like the previous elections, but still people are coming. People keep on coming.
Right. With me in the studio is my colleague Abdullah Hassan. I would also like to ask you a few questions regarding the Guinea elections there in the Gambia. Abdullah, you have Michel online.
Very well. Good afternoon, Michel.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Abdullah.
Yes, my first question to you will be, what do you think is responsible, for the low turnout? Especially, that given that this is the first election in Guinea and for Guineans since the 2021 coup that toppled Alpha Condé.
Yes, I think the turnout is due to there are 9 candidates for this election, and some political parties were not in the course for the election, and they asked their citizens to abstain,
boycott.
So I think that must be but not to boycott, but to stay neutral.
So that could be responsible for the low turnout, you think?
I think that can be one of the reasons, and the second one is that we are just around 12 o'clock here in the Gambia. So, and usually also people come in their numbers, mostly in the afternoon and in the evening.
So are you
hopeful? We are still expecting more people to come.
Right.
So let me just ask still, I'm very sure that days before today you've engaged with Guineans in Banjul, and perhaps you also had discussions on WhatsApp or Facebook. What are some of the major concerns that Guineans, both at home and the diaspora, want to see going forward? With whoever becomes the president?
Regarding these presidential elections, or
no,
I mean, get the question very
yes,
well.
I mean generally, what are some of the concerns that Guineans have said they want whoever becomes the president to fix, at least back in Guinea? Some of the problems.
Some of the problems and challenges that they would want the next president to take care of.
Yeah, in Guinea, especially in the Gambia here, many people are very happy for the work done by this current president, Mamadi Doumbouya, because the Guineans, the particular case of Gambia is the reduction of the residential permit fee. So before, the Guineans were paying very high, it was $3,700 or $3,650, and the Guinean government, current government, has negotiated with the Gambian government, and now the Guineans are paying just $750. So that makes the Guineans very proud of the current president. So for the Gambia issue in particular, we don't have, the Guinean population doesn't have many issues.
Yeah, so let me
because that was our main concern.
Okay, at least that has been resolved. But back in Guinea,
yeah, that has been resolved.
Yeah, so but back in Guinea, you have reports of right violations, media suppression, and the forced disappearances or the arbitrary arrest of people who appear to be political, who appear to be critics of the current regime. These are concerns that Guineans have, for them to really have the right to enjoy their freedoms. Are these issues not been discussed maybe on your platform, common platform being shared by Guineans home and abroad?
For that case, those cases, I think we have to be very careful, because these social medias, sometimes they will talk about some people's arrests, and the following or 2-3 days back, and you will see that it's not true, or they were arrested and they were released. So that's the reason why some people find it very a bit difficult to give their opinions on that.
Okay.
Because it's not all the arrests that we hear on the social media that are true.
Okay. Before we let you go, Michelle, just quickly coming back to the electoral process or in the election day there, what time are the polls closing officially?
Yeah, the polls are supposed to close at sharp 6 p.m.
And then when do we expect counting after the closure of polls?
Yeah. After the close of polls, the counting will start immediately, and I have to mention that since morning there has not been any incident observed, because that's very, very important.
Right.
Very true.
So and also people are voting freely according to the law.
All right. Michelle, thank you very much for talking to us. We truly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Right, have a good day.
It's a pleasure.
All right, thank you very much. Michel Pogpe Quivogu is the president of ECOWAS Citizens in the Gambia.
Well, it's good to know that Guineans in the diaspora are taking part in this process. At least we have them in Guinea, in Senegal, and in the Gambia. Mm-hmm. And from where he's at currently, he said they have 7.
Yes, 7 polling stations. So that's Serekunda. It's one of the biggest, settlements and cities in the Gambia.
Perhaps we can't say for real now what the population size is for Guineans in the Gambia, or those eligible to cast their ballots. But I want to believe that the number is quite huge for them to have that number of polling stations in just one center.
Indeed.
But also, one major takeaway there, according to him, so far it's been very peaceful,
smooth.
There's been no incident reported or documented. That's very important to state as well.
We hope it continues like that throughout in every part of the both home and diaspora. That's what we crave for. That's what we pray for.
Absolutely. But if we have to pray, we should pray harder. You know what happened in Guinea-Bissau?
And we thought everything was going to...
No, it was good. Just hours before elections,
but I'm
provisional election results were declared, was when the coup was announced.
I am very hopeful. This
Quite unfortunate.
God willing.
God's willing.
Yes. Well, I'm afraid that's how much time we've got on this second edition of Guinea Decides here on West Africa Democracy Radio. We'll be back into the studio, of course. Abdullah and Augustine will be back here from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. for the third edition of Guinea Decides here on West Africa Democracy Radio. I am Sankule Janko and Abdullah Hassan.
Well, we urge you to stay tuned because the French service will be coming in about 4 minutes. To take over the mic for this live broadcast of the elections in Guinea, and that will be from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. You will have minute-to-minute update and updates from correspondents spread across Guinea. Do stay with us. Many thanks to the production team. We do have Mustafa Sek, Maudo Juf, Ismaila Kamara, Christopher Tuchu, Augustine Kole, and of course Sani Mumuna Sebu, coordinator of programs. We thank you all. Stay tuned.
This is the live coverage of the 2025 presidential election in Guinea.
WADR